Okay guys, the shoulder roll is a topic that is perhaps the most popular, the most misunderstood, certainly one of the things that I'm most often asked about. I want to preface this by saying that the shoulder roll plays an integral, essential role in overall health and biomechanical work in the Russian martial arts. It's widely used. In our approach, however, we don't prioritize it quite as much, simply because we feel that combatively there are lots of other ways of going to the ground that are of a far higher probability than the shoulder roll. So for us, the shoulder roll is not a first tier combative move. We align it at a level 3 ranking, which is really more of an intermediate to advanced attribute, and it's really mostly for a deeper biomechanical understanding and greater efficiency in our body. Most of the time when you see people shoulder rolling voluntarily in combative situations, they could have simply screwed to the ground, sprawled, done a circle sit-up or something far more efficient. So I want to preface this by saying, while there are some combative circumstances where shoulder roll might be the best solution, they're far fewer than a lot of people promote. So we don't feel that it's a high probability combative move, but for ground flow, mobility, strengthening, awareness of the body, fantastic. That being said, there are a number of common misunderstandings that we see in teaching our students here or worldwide that sort of plague the shoulder roll. There are 4 essential shoulder rolls that we teach: the so-called crucifix shoulder roll, where the arms are out in a T position and the arm is screwing. This is widely used whenever we have preference. It's a more open roll that allows us to distribute force from shoulder to shoulder. It also allows us to have a weapon in our hands without bringing it back towards ourselves, which is a good rule of thumb. So we go from the crucifix roll to what is often called a sword roll, because traditionally it was used with a sword in front, where the arm is screwed inward into the body. And then from crucifix to sword roll, we have a thread under roll, where the roll starts off by going under the body, and then finally the most conventional, which is the cradle roll, which is the one that goes between the legs, as you might see in judo or jiu-jitsu or other arts. What we're going to focus on today is mostly the crucifix roll, just because the body is more open and it's easier to feel the necessary spiraling in the arms, the compression in the cradle, use of the neck, exhalation. Moreover, the screwing nature of the spine, moving from one shoulder to the other, is essential, and it is usually easiest for students to feel that and slow it down in a crucifix roll. So without further ado, here are 5 essential exercises to help you improve your shoulder roll. Exercise number 1 is the Cossack arm screw. So it's simply put, if we have our hands up, close our fists, place one thumb down, one thumb up. And the idea here is that when I take the top thumb to a bottom position, I take the other side up. I rotate from side to side. I would like this motion not to originate in the hands, which could be done without any motion in the torso or in the shoulders. I want it to really originate from the shoulder, the head of that humerus, rotating and rotating. And at first it is easier to isolate one side to feel that motion. It can be helpful to use something as simple as a little 2-pound, 3-pound ball, a little 1-kilo Pilates ball, and to feel that torque. Because that'll get you out of the habit of just rotating with the hand. You'll feel it doesn't feel quite comfortable. And I want to also avoid hyper-extending that elbow. I want to have that originate in a nice buoyant manner from the shoulder, just like I was performing a shoulder roll in boxing, slipping. And if I have both going, one is up and one is down. At the beginning, it's sufficient just to feel this as a biomechanical movement. Later on, there's integration of breath and the feeling of expulsion that can accommodate that. But for shoulder roll purposes at this level, we just want to see that we have that mechanical awareness, motion originating in the head of the humerus, and the arm avoiding that lockout. From that position now, we're going to take that arm screwing motion, and we're going to acquire it by going from a sweeping action with the hand. So if I imagine my hand being on the ground, sweeping forward into that finished state. And the idea behind this is that when I'm falling, I want to functionalize that flinch response, and rather than freezing and then trying to screw from here, I need to bring that arm, that natural desire to go out, I need to bring it inside my body so that I can acquire this head of my humerus and roll across the meat of my deltoid onto the back. So what we do is we simply place the ball on the ground, and we practice with a monkey hand, a thumbless grip, scooping, that kind of emotion, scooping, and just having the ball come back. And then once it's comfortable, I scoop and I can keep it if I wish. I can have my free hand on the ground, I scoop, and I touch the shoulder to the ground and return. Scoop, touch the shoulder to the ground. So the first thing that's going to happen is there will often be a head of humerus collision with the planet, and people go, ugh, and then and crash down. I want to soften that shoulder and see that I'm avoiding impact with the elbow first, sliding onto the back of the shoulder second. So again, avoid impact with the elbow first, sliding onto that shoulder second. Again, if we go back to that arm screw action, the roundness of the arm is going to help us create that ball shape around which we will roll. If I hyperextend that arm, I'm more prone to crashing into the humerus head, and then I'll have a harder time transitioning across the neck. So this exercise can't be overstated. Very nice, simple, softening drill. Usually allowing the air to expunge naturally as the shoulder gets compressed. Number 3, we're working in sequence, but this is probably the most epidemic problem that we see, is this idea of how to move the head and protect it. The whole reason we're shoulder rolling is first and foremost to protect my spine and my head, my brain, my skull, my face. I would rather sprain or break a finger, hurt my wrist, than damage my head, my brain. So first and foremost, we're trying to protect that head. So it makes very little sense to then perform a shoulder roll where massive amounts of pressure are being permitted on the head. The problem with this is that if I engage in my shoulder roll, I get down on my lead shoulder, in this case my right, and then I immediately allow myself to post on my head. What's going to happen is the muscles that are requiring my head to extend backwards are going to engage fully to help me prevent either excessive compression or to control the direction. If in this state I'm now dependent on my head as a kickstand and I try to take it off the ground, it's not going to be very natural. One, my entire state's going to change, my head's going to collapse, get crushed, compressed by my legs, or I'm going to fall out of my structure. Two, if it's a really desperate state where I'm barely able to hold it, those backward forcing muscles are not going to allow me to fully engage the sternocleidomastoids to pull up. So this being said, we cannot wait till we're on the ground to engage these muscles and cradle the neck inward. If we want to have the most effective cradling of the neck, the most effective protecting and couching of that head, we need to squeeze it in sooner, which means that chin needs to come down as that shoulder comes over to protect us, just as we would with a punch. I don't want to leave a long lever of my neck available for any kind of impact. I would couch it down into my shoulder and bring my shoulder up. It's a shared responsibility. 50% shoulder shielding, 50% chin dropping at the same time, just like a boxer would slip. So I want to bring that chin down, shortening this as I come into this position. Ideally, this will now allow me to better avoid any contact with the head so that I'm able to go across. My head shouldn't hit the ground. It may touch, but it should be minimal. So a very good way to train this is to take something flexible, have a little happy face ball here from the dollar store, and squeeze it under. So I always want to start, this is very important, start in an open state. Don't perform 50 repetitions like this, yeah? Like a lifetime violinist with a chronic neck injury. Open, inhale, and squeeze it down, and as I roll, I keep that ball under my chin. What matters is not that the roll is completely fluid yet. If you have, if you're working on segments of it and sequences of it, you want to just make sure that we're able to keep this. You may be surprised how many people will get down to this state, place their head down, and lose that ball. So the ball's going to become an immediate awakening point, make you aware of exactly where that neck is failing. I want that compression to occur right here. So as I come over, I can use that hand to guide me, and I find the softest way to transition over. So really what matters here is that there is already a compression in the neck before I get to this position. And it is enough, if I'm having major problems with the rest of the roll, it's enough to get onto my shoulder and to come back. Even using a wall as a stopping point so that I don't go too far. I get my chin here, get onto my shoulder, stop myself, and come back by use of the wall. I want to work at every single little piece, isolate it, then chunk them together into attributes. So a little squishy ball under the chin, closing and opening to teach myself to couch that head in before I start my roll. So for the next exercise, we need something under which to tether our hand. A medicine ball can work if you're lighter or if you're really stable. Here I have a 100-pound punching bag, which is nice and soft and provides more than enough force. You can stuff your hand under the edge of your door. I would suggest either putting on a glove or just like a dish towel or something in case it scrapes if you're not used to it. Under a sofa is very good as well. Just be careful. They always have those little staples that are holding the lining on the bottom that cut the hands. Experience. So I want to just have something comfortable, soft, accommodating to the hands, under which I will sort of tether myself. So what I'm doing is this. I go back to my basic motion. I sweep that arm in, and I'm going to lodge it under. And as I go onto that first shoulder, now I have an anchor, the anchor being the bag. And I'm going to move from my first shoulder, my right, to my left. And then most people in this position fall. Just collapse onto their side like a dead cow or flop onto their back and impact the spine fully that they were seeking to protect. So what we want to do is we want to go 1 centimeter, 1 inch, one little portion past our comfort zone, to that tremble zone where we're shaking. So it doesn't matter where it is, it's going to increase if you respect it, isolate it, and work it. So if I get here and just kissing that other shoulder to the ground is difficult, I'm going to work. If I need to put the tricep down, I will. If I need to put the hand, I will. But the idea is I get to my maximum and I find my stability. And then I come back. Incrementally that will increase and it'll become like an iron flag. And so here we see I'm only on my left shoulder. My right hand is tethered. My right shoulder is completely off the ground. I switch. There's a transfer, like a baton in a relay. Right shoulder touches. Left shoulder joins. Right shoulder lifts. Left shoulder touches only. Come back. Right shoulder joins. Left shoulder lifts. Be a very demanding exercise, great for core strength, great for stability, great for understanding your alignment. And then as that gets better, you can relinquish that tether and see how far over you can work. Super great way for smoothing out your crucifix roll. And the final exercise for improving our body awareness in our crucifix roll is shoulder wall walking. A wall, we need shoulders. So what we're going to do is do a light squat, sit up against the wall. And I want to see at the beginning that my shoulders are capable of moving up, back, down, and forward. And I want to isolate that motion as fully as I can in both directions. I then also want to see that they're capable of going outwards, outwards, forward, into the torso, and back, as if I were stirring a circle on the ceiling at the top of my shoulder. And then finally, I'm able to make a circle on that frontal plane as well, and I can go up, outward, leading with the humerus and the elbow, down to center, and into the body. So that as if I had a small pencil or pen under my armpit or in the front of my deltoid, I was trying to draw circles on the camera lens. Now, these are all different ways that we can move the shoulders. What I can do is I can isolate by putting a bit of weight against the wall, at first starting with the hips and back touching, and then just going to the shoulders themselves. And what I do is I can practice walking up the wall and walking down the wall. And I can move my feet to the distance that I'm able to handle. But here, I must really exaggerate those shoulder motions, otherwise I won't get up. My leg strength will not be enough. And from this position, I can work laterally, forward and in, switching from shoulder to shoulder, so that my legs are not enough. My elbows are not touching, just my scapula. Going to my max. And back. So the idea here is that I want to develop intelligence, range of motion, and power in those shoulders, so I can move anywhere that I want them to move, and then that will complement thoracic movement, lumbar movement later on. We get into the shoulder roll. One of the main reasons people freeze up and fall is because they lack basic understanding in their shoulders themselves. I often tell my students, don't let complexity deceive you, right? Sometimes things that are very, very simple are essential. You take the simplest punch, the simplest jab, they may become self-evident and obvious to a professional boxer, but that still remains one of their essential go-to tools. These 5 exercises, very simple, maybe even self-evident, but there's no shortcuts around them. They help us isolate the fundamental screwing of the arm, the sweep into the screw, the sweep to the screw to the cradle of the head, the greeting with the shoulder, and a very fluid transfer onto the opposite shoulder to protect that spine. And then finally, just basic awareness of the shoulders in all directions, so that that basic crucifix roll can later evolve into omnidirectional rolls, where I can choose to roll in any manner with my arm in any position. I hope these were helpful to you guys. I hope you enjoyed them. If you have absolutely any questions, please drop me a line.